Welcome, everybody. It's 3 o'clock on the dot, so we like to start on time. People will be coming in. Hi, John. People will be coming in. Please switch off your video and your microphone as you come in. The session will be recorded. If this is your second time or not your first time coming in, the platform has changed a little bit, so I'm not able to spotlight just the 3 speakers today. So we're going to try and do that as we go along, but as long as you see us and you put your video on mute, then it makes it much easier for those who are joining just to see the speakers. So again, my name is Mariette Abrahams. I'm the CEO and founder of Qina. We're a strategic nutrition innovations consultancy and platform. We focus on the area of personalized nutrition, which I'm sure why you are here. And we really combine our domain expertise, our data and digital tools to help companies to innovate. So I've already mentioned the video off just in terms of housekeeping and the microphone, but one other thing that I forgot was if you have a question as we go through the next hour, is please put your questions in the chat. We're going to try and address them as much as possible. If we don't get to them, we will send some responses via email in the follow-up emails as well. And please stay on to the end because we also have an announcement in terms of what's coming next, which will be also relevant to you. We will be running for the next hour, and so we'll keep on a tight schedule, and we look forward to your engagement. So I'll hand over to Josh to introduce himself.
Sure. Thank you, Mariette. This is Josh Anthony. I'm the founder and CEO of Nlumen. We're a business-to-business personalized nutrition health consulting company. We help businesses participate more fully in the personalized nutrition marketplace, helping them with strategy, consumer insights, and new product development. And let me turn it over to Nard.
Thank you very much, Josh, Mariette, for the introduction. Mariette for organizing this second webinar in this series. So my name is Nard Clabbers. I am also a founder of NCNC Nutrition Consultancy, also in the space of personalized nutrition, and also the director of strategic development for a innovation organization in Holland called Brightlands in Venlo. Sorry, I'm still quite new there. So last time we have discussed all kinds of fuck-ups in personalized nutrition from different companies, and actually learned quite a lot, I think, about what went wrong there and what could be improved. But we definitely did not finish our conversation, and that's why we actually immediately thought it would be good to have a second round of conversations. And even after this one, we won't be done with talking about this subject. I think there were quite a lot of questions last time, and we didn't get around to answering all of them. So I've got 2 questions here that I would like to ask to Mariette and Josh. I will be moderating this session, by the way, but I will also meddle in the discussion if I see fit. So one of the things we discussed last time was the personalized nutrition network QUISPR. QUISPR was initiated by an EU project, was actually a platform where different personalized nutrition suppliers could be gathered, and with an integrator to help a consumer find the personalized nutrition company or service that he or she needs. And one of the questions was that, do you feel that QUISPR was a bit early to the market? Could the current AI hype provide a better timing for sufficient funding to succeed in building such a large shared data set and shared rules and algorithms? So let's give it first to Mariette before I start answering it.
Yes, I think it's a very good question about QUISPR, and of course the idea was very bold, the idea was very new, and I think then itself was quite an issue that there wasn't really a very good or clear value in terms of the consumer, but also in terms of the businesses, because a lot of the businesses, of course, were quite early in their journey anyway. So they were trying to find their position and their, product market fit within the market. So for them then to ask to say, okay, well, share your algorithm with us, and we have a scientific board, and we will say, whether it's a scientifically validated or good enough product to then recommend, was also, a step for the companies. But on the consumer end, what is the benefit, or what was the value, was also not very clear, because whether they read, the ratings on the Trustpilot or the app stores, it was still quite a new concept. So not even for them, personalized nutrition is new. And then to already go to the next step, 10 years down the line, to say, okay, we want you to, recommend, just listen to us, because this is the hub of all hubs, was quite a move. So I think there were quite a few challenges there, and of course, I think AI is definitely a change in the playground right now, because it can actually help with some of that, recommendations, especially looking at Gen AI. But we are still early on. I mean, we'll talk about this more. But of course, within the solutions that we have in the industry, AI is still, coming into play, and we need to still find out what is the best solution for which individual, based on not only their social determinants, but also what are they willing to do and what are they willing to share. And I think that's, so yes, it was early, but it's not impossible.
Nard, I think Mariette brings up two really good points, right? One of which is sort of that consumer value proposition. But the other part of it is sort of the ability to be able to, communicate or integrate potential solutions. And I think, AI holds a lot of promise for doing that. But in a lot of the early models for personalized nutrition ecosystems, there's this concept of the integrators. And I think when you have a concept like Whisper, what you really need is you need somebody that actually can act as your broker, right? Really be able to go like a level deeper, somebody that can, better actively manage that, or manage technology, or match technology to a consumer problem to solve. And I think that was the challenge. But I also think, too, that with time, that's the promise of AI, to help to provide that type of support.
Yeah, so you do think that AI will make these kinds of, let's say, services easier and better to execute?
I think it's never going to be worse than it is right now.
Yeah, no, indeed.
So I don't think it's, I don't want to make it sound like it will solve everything, but I think it will continue to improve.
Yeah, because I was also really interested by this question, because actually the startup that I co-founded, Hub, had quite a similar idea of selecting or gathering personalized nutrition solutions on the platform and helping consumers find those at every location and time that they needed. And so I gave it a lot of thought, because we started Hub 4 or 5 years ago, so it wasn't really in the AI hype. What would we have done differently now? I think it would make a lot of things much, much simpler. I think also it would have decreased the ask for funding from us. But I still think that a lot of the other things that we didn't really get right, they don't change. So it's still, for consumers, difficult to articulate their goals. It's still difficult for companies to interact with those consumers, AI or not. It makes it easier, but so it's not a solution for all of the problems that exist in personalized nutrition to have AI. Although I do think, and I did a little experiment myself, because I think I gave that presentation in Illinois for the Personalized Nutrition Initiative to see, if AI could help me in finding, let's say, the 3, 4, or 5 companies out of the 1,000 or whatever existing companies in personalized nutrition to help me with a specific goal. So I articulated a specific goal. I want to win the Dutch mountain bike marathon championships, and which companies would be ideal for that. And ChatGPT gave me an answer. Okay, I've got €1,000. How would you distribute them over those companies, which is the second big problem? Also quite a clear answer. So I do think that AI can play a role in those two big questions. Although the biggest issue, and we will come to that later on in the discussion, is if you have €1,000 and 4 or 5 whatever companies that could make an ideal combination, they still have to work together, or you have to integrate the data coming from those companies. And that new ecosystem or new business ecosystem, that is still very much a challenge. But anyway, so I thought it was a good question. We will definitely come to those ecosystem issues also. Any other comments on this one?
No.
Good. Then the second one, I think also really interesting. I think I would like to ask Josh for the first response to that one, also coming from your practical experience with Habit, is what wording or offering has worked best when trying to market personalized nutrition?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, I think speaking to a problem. I think that the challenge in the marketplace right now is many people are speaking with or leading with their technology. And I think when consumers need to fix something, short term, longer term, they need to kind of understand the solution is for them. I think the challenge has been too many people talk about things like, like health or supporting overall health or wellness, but because they're afraid of losing consumers. I think that the better play or the stronger play is to speak to people with respect to solutions that help to fill a gap. In that regard, it's not really that different than trying to communicate benefits on any product. But I think you have the ability to go deeper and build a stronger relationship if you can establish trust that you can solve one or more problems. What that means from a practical standpoint, or what is going to work, is selling products or services against specific benefits. And I think in a lot of cases, the more specific you can get, the better. So
can you give an example?
Yeah, of course. So I think that moving from sort of general wellness or metabolic health to areas that is going to be more supporting, more along the lines of supporting weight loss, or really right now it's even moving more toward body shaping, or it's like to take it one step further, because GLP-1s are all the rage right now. It's about losing weight and keeping muscle, right? Yeah. Or losing weight and avoiding side effects. And in fact, those two things may come together, but you could be speaking to two very different consumers. One might be trying to deal with the near-term side effects of GLP-1 agonists, which is an immediate need that is a different solve than the long-term risk of losing muscle mass that would come with weight loss on GLP-1 agonists. So that's an example of, like, if you are just speaking to metabolic health or weight loss, you miss the boat. You have a specific consumer with a specific need. And then within that need, right, there's two specific benefits you're going after, a short term and a longer term. So I think it's really important to determine the context. And somebody might say, well, wait a minute, you're splitting the market way too much. And I'm going, my pushback on something like that is, well, look at areas that are rapidly growing. Right now, we're predicting that there's going to be about 1 in 10 consumers will be on GLP-1 receptor agonists by 2030. So I certainly think that's a robust enough market as you're looking at opportunities to play there.
Absolutely. Mariette, from your experience last 10 years, what has worked?
Yeah, I mean, I just saw a quick question there from Gustavo, because that was my point in terms of the, what language to use or how to really communicate on personalized nutrition, is that at the moment we are seeing that social media has kind of reached a saturation point. Yeah, the influencer model is reaching saturation, whereas actually healthcare professionals are still the trusted resource, and there's more and more trend towards listening and acting upon the advice of healthcare professionals. And I think that's really interesting, because actually using an influencer approach does not lead to purchases, and actually they are not trusted. They are watched but not trusted. And so I think for companies looking at what to do this year is, Are you engaging with healthcare professionals? And also, are you using the kind of language that healthcare professionals would use when they are speaking to patients, or whether they are speaking to consumers trying, from a more prevention angle? Because I think there's an aspirational element, but there's also an educational element, and that consumers don't want just a product or a solution. They also want to be educated, because like Joshua, it's longer term. You're not just thinking about the now, you're thinking about how can you positively engage and influence and support the consumers towards their health. And that's where I think trying to get that balance right now, understanding in the broader context of what's happening, is healthcare professionals or practitioners and what they do, how they speak, the language that they use, and getting them into the loop of your product development or your communications is certainly going to be important in the context of personalized nutrition.
I think that's both answers are very elaborate, but they're not very concrete. So can I challenge you both to give, let's say, more practical examples of what has worked and what hasn't worked in personalized nutrition?
So I would say, in terms of language, if you talk about genetics, for example, you talk about risk, like you're going to die, or if you don't do this, you will have disease in the next 5 years. That does not work. Scaring people does definitely not work. Yeah. That's from, and I think also, coming back to my point, healthcare professionals would not talk like that. They would talk in context of nutrition, not about, food avoidance or elimination. They would talk about, let's talk about what you can have. Let's talk about what you can do. And I think it's that equipping, consumers and even, companies with the right language is certainly helpful.
Yeah. Also, what I perhaps can add, also what I see in the market is that, because most personalized nutrition companies are quite small and quite niche, they speak, so the successful ones speak the language of their target audience.
Yeah.
So if you look at the more broader audiences, it's more broad. But let's say, more specific companies, I don't want to name any specific companies, but you see that they really speak the language of their users. And I think that's very strong of them, but it's also one of the things that hinders them to grow from their target audience.
Correct.
To bigger. And I think one of the really interesting, so that's more future looking, one of the really interesting solutions to that issue is also to be able to differentiate your communication. And that's something we have, I used to work for TNO, a research organization, and we did some interesting research also with Wageningen University on how to differentiate between different target audiences, and also learning from the differences in communication to see who wants which message. I think that is something that a lot of companies are not doing that well, or are not really actively engaged in, to really try to understand and differentiate their message for different target audiences. How do you look at it, Josh?
Maybe I just kind of want to add one other thing too, just in terms of the specificity of messaging, because we're kind of talking a lot about like messaging in terms of selling, almost kind of selling the value proposition to the user, right? There's another part of the messaging that's really important that, what Mariette was talking about made me think about a little bit. And it's messaging as it relates to the recommendations that you receive. Because food plays so many parts in our lives. Messaging that isolate people creates a big problem. That's issue one. So
what do you mean with that?
Yeah, so as an example, if a father or mother receives a message that the best diet for them is a ketogenic diet, which is a type of and their family is not going to be able to go along with that.
Yeah, the rest of the family are cyclists. Yeah,
it ends up creating a lot of challenges when it comes to meal preparation or additional cost. So that's one specific example, that particularly when I was with Habit, that we always had questions about how can I best feed my family, right? And so finding ways to be flexible in that context.
How did you solve that? How did you answer that? Because it's difficult.
Yeah. Well, what we did is we working obviously closely with TNO at the time, is we really developed diets that had a degree of flexibility in them, and we provided recipes that would allow them to be able to address their needs, but also be able to address the needs of their family. The other thing that I would say that is a big turnoff is if somebody doesn't feel like they are seen in the recommendations. You want to lose somebody fast. If somebody says, I don't like blueberries, and you recommend blueberries, or since everybody recommends salmon, if they say, I don't like salmon, and you recommend salmon, they're gone, right? So there's also, like, I think we're talking a lot about some of the, kind of some specifics to get people to buy in, but equally as important is the communication to get people to stay in.
Absolutely. No, it's one of the learnings we had as well, is that, I mean, with all of the nice stories about health, but taste is still king, right? Yes. So you have to deliver something that people actually enjoy using. Otherwise, it's done in 3 weeks, right? I mean, that's
and it's not just that they enjoy, but they can, but they can still go have a drink or dinner with friends and with their family. You can't lose that social element of food.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments, Mariette?
No,
very good.
That's good.
So there are, apart from the companies that we have already discussed, quite a few more failures in personalized nutrition. And we picked two with the three of us to discuss, because they are very different companies, and also we feel they failed for very different reasons. And those two are Day 2 and Care Of. And just to kick things off, Mariette, could you dive a little bit deeper into Day 2, what kind of company, why it failed, and etc.?
Yeah, so Day 2 was a company that was, I think, launched in 2016. It was a company headquartered in Israel. They got a lot of funding. I think I checked yesterday, it was like 85 million. And essentially they were classed, I would say, as a microbiome company. It was really based on the science from the Weizmann Institute, where it looked at your microbiome composition. And then based on that, you would then receive recommendations, personalized nutrition recommendations, to then not only improve your microbiome diversity, but also to help to improve your glycemic response. And so how it worked is you would take a microbiome test, and that the results would then be uploaded to an app, and then that app would create a score which will help to guide you towards foods and recipes to improve your gut health, essentially. They were mainly a B2B company. They tried a little bit on B2C, but they didn't really go very far. They tried mainly B2B. So after all the years and years of trying and testing and collaborations also with academic institutions, including Mayo, they closed last year. And I think there were a lot of issues with it. Number one was that a lot of the science that it was based on was not really replicated, in any other populations. That was one thing. The other thing was that it kind of went against the healthcare professional recommendations. So if, for example, you were looking at somebody who was either pre-diabetic or wanted to improve their metabolic health, they had like a red list and a green list, and which is not what a healthcare professional would do. And if you looked at what was on the green list, it would be things that healthcare professionals would not be recommending to people. And so there was already a kind of a resistance in terms of getting buy-in from healthcare professionals. And of course, that already led to some issues. And of course, the business model couldn't be, it was not sustainable, because they tried to get, more research backing from that. But it was really that, not only that, but also the app was not that personalized. Yeah. So you got one score, there was no retesting. And considering that, your microbiome changes all the time, it was actually quite static. So it didn't go very far. It didn't go very well. And, but yeah, I would say they were kind of like one of the first legacy ones, if you could call it that, that also did not really include kind of that dynamic human in the loop approach to say, hey, I saw you ate this, now what about that, or what are you trying? So it was literally one test, one app, and that was it.
Yeah, and also
I think that's why they failed.
Yeah, I also think when talking to them back then, because we both met them quite often at the events at that time, they really had a growth path of doing much more testing and also including much more parameters. So the idea was, okay, the first parameter was this microbiome test, and then see what kind of glucotype or whatever you want to call it you are, and then adapting the diet to it. But then the idea was to include much more parameters. I think that also never really materialized.
It never happened.
And one of the other, let's say, criticisms of the Weizmann algorithm, so to say, is that basically what comes out, if you compile everything, is a low carb diet.
Yeah.
And it was also, what we discussed last time. In the end, you get the broccoli, salmon, rice phenomenon, right? You get this meal, which you already kind of know that you have to do. So if you do a lot of testing, it costs quite some money and some effort, and basically you get low carb foods. It's not, what's the specificity there? So that's one thing. And also I was wondering, how much do you think is the rise of continuous glucose monitoring? How much did that affect also the business model that they have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very, very highly controversial point, topic at this point.
Yeah.
What I see is that it's only going to increase. It's only going to improve because it's one let's say device, or it's one metabolite, but it's going to increase to more metabolites. It's going to be this whole thing about the sensors, the metabolites, that's real time, together with coaching, together with your smartphone, together with the rings. Everything will come into one. So I think the focus now is on, yes, it's not, it shouldn't be used, or it's only one device measuring one thing. It's not going away. That's what I think. It will transform into the ring, or it'll transform into the watch. But essentially, essentially, I think the end point is, in a few years' time, we're going to wonder how we ever gave advice without actually knowing how people responded and thinking, how did we do that?
But do you think that the rise of continuous glucose monitoring affected the business model of Day 2?
No, I don't think so, because they really weren't positioned themselves as like a CGM solution, maybe like some of the others were. They really were positioned as a microbiome solution. So even if you had that, you didn't have a CGM afterwards again. So I don't think that affected the business model.
I was more thinking about, because it's now so easy to give someone personalized advice, especially in pre-diabetes or diabetes, with a continuous glucose monitor, without needing to do the test. It's much more personalized, it's much more precise, it's much more in your face than doing a microbiome test and then inferring some kind of a diet from that. So I think that those two business models do kind of collide, because it's so much easier to do the same or better with a continuous glucose monitor.
And I think maybe with the positioning, now looking back, of course, is much easier. But if you had both, it would be nice. But then the price point would be too high. So it's always exactly.
So just one housekeeping rule. Perhaps could you mute the microphone? Or what your
Rihanna.
Roger, could you mute your microphone?
Hang on. Okay.
You did it for him.
And Nard, maybe just a few things on Day 2, and just a kind of couple thoughts with respect to continuous glucose monitoring. I did wonder. I mean, I don't have the data, but I did wonder if the increased competition from glucose monitoring companies did contribute to that, or how much. So I think it's. I don't know that it. I think that certainly the possibility exists. But I also think too that it kind of brings up another phenomenon in personalized nutrition. A professor that I had during my MBA, Michael Burcham, said to me one time, "Don't define a problem by the lack of your solution." And so right now, because we can measure glucose continuously, I think it's a very good marker, but I think it's being, it's being kind of rolled out as sort of the lead for personalized nutrition.
Yeah, it's like what they say, right? If you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's an analogous statement. Unfortunately, he said it to me while I was giving a presentation, which was a little bit awkward, but good lesson learned. But the point is I think one of the things that the future will hold, as we're thinking about opportunities, is I think we're going to see a lot more continuous monitoring and measuring coming, which I think has the potential to be game changing, because like my concern with day 2 had always been like, if you over focus on glucose, are you under focusing on other areas that may also be important to health? And I think looking at it comprehensively is probably going to be very important in terms of looking at what's going to be the best possible recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, in their defense, they did shift their focus to diabetes patients. I mean,
They did. You're
the
right.
glucose stuff is a little bit more, more self-explanatory. And on that note, we actually have a question that may be a little bit related to this. In perhaps I should start answering it, because I have an answer in my head about using DNA and about the pushback perhaps that that companies have using DNA. And I think, and when we were talking about sensors and continuous monitoring, it's really about the phenotype. So what's actually happening in your body. It's really actionable. You can do something about it. You can tell people this was your last week or this is your next week. With DNA, the genotypical assessment, looking at the genotype, it doesn't really change. So I think that's one of the big differences and big differentiations between looking at genotypes, looking at phenotypes. Just as one answer perhaps to the question. Not sure if either Mariette or Josh wants to add to this, but...
Sorry, okay. We have minus on the use of DNA for okay. Yeah. So thank you for the question. There is, and of course, what we've seen essentially, and we'll come back to the chart a little bit, is that a lot of the companies that focus just on nutrigenetics, so maybe just looking at one SNP, focusing on nutrition, they were not doing so well. But what we are seeing is that there's this shift towards epigenetics, which means more continuous testing, more focus on longevity. But that also means you can see that it's focused on a more higher, price point, for example. So I think DNA still has its role, but not in the context of on its own. It needs to be taken with other solutions within the industry. So I don't agree that it's skepticism, so to speak. I think that there is evidence to show that the DNA does play a role, for sure. That is not the skepticism. The skepticism comes in, can you tell me now that if I change this, that my genes won't be expressed, or something like that? And I think that's where that leap is not there. That's where the skepticism comes in. So now I think some of the companies that have been around, for decades now, they are doing pretty well, educating the healthcare professional, and then who are then educating the end consumer. And I think that's where we need to, or that's from a consumer market point of view, to look at it.
Yeah, because Adam made the comment that the skepticism is mostly around security of data, which definitely is extremely relevant point. Looking at DNA, seeing it doesn't change. So day 2, I think we've covered day 2. So the other company that we thought of is Care/of. So George, can you enlighten us a little bit on that one?
Yeah. So for people that aren't familiar, I look at Care/of was in essence a personalized supplement company that I almost view as sort of a response to some of the more expensive technology-enabled platforms like Habit or Airavow, which oftentimes is a high upfront cost, investment of time, and a lot of time to get your results back. So Care/of actually, solved that in a very simple way. They had a brief personalized health quiz that they gave you for free, and then that was linked to supplement recommendations. And the business model was then to buy supplements. And Care/of, in a lot of ways, was a kind of a darling of the industry, right? Ultimately culminating in a few years ago, Bayer buying them for over $200 million. And so then sadly, what got a lot of news last year is that Care/of was shuttering. And so I think, first, there's a couple things that we need to consider, right? Bayer is an enormous company, and there can be a lot of different reasons why that came about. also, too, Bayer is not moving away from personalized nutrition, right? They have their own in-house precision health nutrition initiative, and they launched an aging app and product late last year, I believe. And so, they're, I wrote it down, so age factor, so they're continuing in the space. But I do think it's worth a little bit of like a post-mortem on Care of and what they might have done differently or better. So the first thing, that I would talk about with Care of is, how do you maintain that engagement, right? How do you keep somebody coming back? And really, I think we're in a place that is probably different from maybe 5 or 7 years ago, where just having a personalized quiz and making it easy to onboard and then providing supplements without feedback or context or other information may not be enough. Supplements are easy for people to take, but a lot of times it may be harder or less likely that they're going to feel or experience the benefits. So could that interaction or could that engagement have been greater if they were able to provide feedback or to provide coaching or other dietary context or lifestyle context to support their users? A second thing that I think was like really a real challenge was part of Bayer's model, or part of their reason for buying them, was to get them out onto retail and expand their marketplace at an equivalent cost. I think there's a few things there that have to be considered. Oftentimes, consumers associate what they pay for something as being part of the value proposition, right? We found in our own research that you can certainly go too expensive, but if you go too low, people may not see the value in it. Also, Care of decided to start putting their supplements into functional groupings: men's health, women's health, digestive health. When you see that next to another product on shelf that may be coming in cheaper, or on Amazon that may be cheaper, and you already know what to purchase, and maybe you're not experiencing differentiated benefits, what's the reason not to switch? And I also tell you too, from a retail strategy standpoint, if I'm another company and I see Care of making waves, I'm going to drop my price and just convert consumers to begin with. So I think that was a real challenge. So I think that, really what they missed was the opportunity to provide more holistic services to help to support people's needs and to help them to feel the benefit. And I think to some extent, and of course hindsight's 2020, but kind of going retail and more general took them away from their initial value proposition to be more personalized. And I think those two things led to them not being able to really stand out in the marketplace in the same way.
Yeah, I think that last point is really valid. I think people, also buy into personalized nutrition because they want to feel special, right? And if you see it everywhere, it's really available, it's cheap, etc., it doesn't perhaps feel that personalized anymore. I think that's also part of the appeal, apart from the fact that indeed, their value may not have been enough, right, for what you actually had to pay for it. And also, I think being part of a very, very large corporation like Bayer gives you a different set of responsibilities, right? You need to grow fast, you need to enter new markets, etc. I think in itself, it probably would still have been a profitable business, because there are quite a few, let's say, spread across different regions, quite a few companies who do exactly the same and who have been profitable for years, but they are not the size that I think a company like Bayer would like to see those companies.
Well, it's not just the size, but also the margin pressures. It's difficult even for a fairly established startup to be integrated into a large company and to compete against things that are at a whole different scale. So that's an excellent point, Nard.
Yeah, I'll add to that, because I think a lot of it was also around, initially the pull pack was the message was kind of, well, it's convenient, right? Yeah, you just fill in the survey, you get this pill pack sent home, but you still needed to take 4, 5, 6 pills, So, and of course, then gummies came along or became, more popular, and the all-in-one, capsule maybe showing more efficacy, or is definitely more convenient because now you only take one. So I think they didn't stay really rooted in terms of what the consumer really was looking for. And so pill packs were easy in the beginning, but then like Josh said about this feedback, like you can't measure the effects. So if it's not connected to something that's measurable, number one, you don't feel it, and number two, you don't tell me what to track. And that's the other thing. And then the consumer who is interested in personalized nutrition is definitely a little bit more aware and proactively looking for information. And they actually feel, well, pill pack is not so scientific. So they're looking for, well, what is the science behind these pill pack? Is the pack that you're giving me actually really good for my body, the way that I work and what I want and what I prefer? And they just did not deliver on that. And I think in the context of today, we see this shift on the two ends from food as medicine, where perhaps there is a specific role if you have specific foods that you don't eat or something, or on the complete other end is the longevity end, which is very high end and test focused, together with your targeted or evidence-based supplement. And so I think it's this middle that is not served very well or has not been figured out very well. So where do the supplements come in now? So, because there needs to be an endpoint. Am I taking the supplements so that I can eventually eat better? Or like, what is the goal? And so I think people initially thought, well, I need to eat better, or I need to improve my health or optimize or something because I'm starting, training for a marathon. But then now I know what to do. So why am I taking the supplement and then just not coming back? So I think it's really being close to the consumer and understanding how they are evolving and how they are using your solution as part of their health journey. Where does it exactly fit in, and what is the end goal that they are trying to achieve? And I think somebody said, like, do consumers actually know what they want? In many cases, they don't know what they want. Maybe they know in the immediate future what they want, but only the longer term comes out as they learn more. And I think if you are not in touch with your consumer and understanding really what they're trying to achieve, it's going to be, and that's where they lost it, because consumers just were not coming back. And just for those who don't know, they actually bought Carol for 225 million. So it wasn't cheap change.
No.
I think they really had high hopes that it would succeed.
Mariette, maybe a couple, a few other points that I think is so important there. You're highlighting this aspect of staying in touch with the user. That is a fundamental problem with almost every platform, because I think that is essential really to be able to solve a problem. And while consumers, I think it's a mistake to suggest that, and I'm not saying that you're suggesting this, but I know that a lot of times that consumers may not fully understand all the benefits of personalized nutrition, but they understand if they have a problem and somebody solves it.
Yeah.
And that continued contact between appointments, between tests, that's what's going to end up driving solutions that work. The other thing too, because I see a little bit of this in the chat about, supplements work, supplements don't, food, but one of the things that we've seen in our research is it's not realistic to kind of look at it that that somebody is, I'm not saying that they can't be, but that it's only food, or that it's only supplements, or that it's only exercise, or it's only mindfulness. Personalized nutrition consumers, more than 85% of them are also avid supplement users. More than 80% of them follow personalized exercise regimens. People are looking for personalization in all aspects of their life. So again, I think just like genes in context with other aspects of your phenotype, personalized nutrition or food has to be looked at the context or the expectation that people are taking multivariate approaches to solving their problems.
Absolutely. It is because the main target audience for personalized nutrition at the moment can be called the worried well, right? So it's people that are pretty well off, not even that unhealthy, and are looking towards, let's say, all kinds of solutions that help their health, right? It's called the health halo. So if you do one thing for your health, you most probably do some other things for your health.
Yeah.
So that's
Exactly.
absolutely. It actually brings me back to my very first job. I think it was in 2001, where we made an online questionnaire to sell pill packs in Holland. So it was really a front runner.
Revolutionary.
Absolutely. Yeah. Didn't work out. So we failed miserably also then. Anyway, Mariette, talking about failures. So you have made
Yes.
a selection from the Qina database with all of, let's say, the personalized nutrition companies about which are the ones that actually dropped out last couple of years, last 5 years. I think would be really interesting to share that with the audience to kind of see what we can learn from that.
So what I've done, can you see that?
We can only see the small one, so you have to select the next slide probably.
See. You see that? That's the. Can you see that?
No, I still see the
small version
myself. Yeah, with the flyer.
Yeah, it's cover page.
Hang on. Let me try that again. It's coming. So yeah, what I've done is look at a breakdown of the current, can you see that?
Yeah.
Of the current personalized nutrition. This is over a number of years though. Can you see the chart now?
Yeah, we cannot really read at least I cannot really read the letters along the pie chart. So if you run it through,
can you see my pointer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what we looked at is just over the past maybe 5 years from how we track the industry is looking at what segment were the companies in that closed. And so to us, it's interesting to see, of course, our segmentation is very much Qina, but it kind of overlaps how other people segment the market as well. But you can see here that genetics is 25%. That's the biggest one. And as I said before, this is where we can see it's the companies that generally have just a nutrigenetics focus, for example, without anything else like metabolites or supplements or meal plans or partnerships. And we see this shift in the industry into into epigenetics, for example, where you're looking at telomeres, or you're looking at methylation tests, for example, as part of this aging, measuring your biological clock as well. So that's where we see most of the closures. Then we also have nutritional supplements. So again, most of the companies that were closed here were the pill packs, the companies that stayed just on their, one solution of just having a pill pack and nothing else, no support, no feedback, no partnerships, are also closing. And we are definitely seeing a shift, especially in supplements where they are partnering up with metabolite companies. And so that's, of course, very, very interesting. And that's what we're seeing. Metabolites as well here are mostly companies that kind of provided a blanket kind of metabolite testing, very widespread. But what we are seeing now is it's really a narrowing down on the target audience. So, for example, a focus on women's health or metabolic health, for example, rather than doing everything. And then the other one was dietary preferences and goal. The green one here is at 17%. And here we think it's because most of these companies, it's a great idea to help people to find the right foods and products and, create meal plans and recipes, but the business model is not there. So a lot of them found, well, actually, after a month or two of having the subscription to these plans, they know what to do. They know what to eat. And now what? And there's nothing new. There's no reason really to come back. So unless these companies have partnered up with maybe retailers, for example, or insurers, they really struggle to find their business model, simply because consumers would not, pay out of pocket month on month just to find recipes and meal plans, which they can quite easily find online now as well. So that just gives you, I know we are very short on time, so that's all in terms of the closures there.
Thank you very much. Are there any learnings that you took when you looked at this, when you made this, and any more general learnings?
Yeah, I think the most general one is this is a really nice, I think, reflection of the evolution of the market. So it's not just like this happened just this year. I think if you look at the longer term view, as the market is evolving, as we are seeing that personalized nutrition really is only now, companies are more aware, consumers are a bit more aware, the interest is there, there's more funding, there's more reimbursement now. That is definitely shifting the market to into a new phase, and that's what we are definitely seeing reflected in where the funding is going, but also the kind of companies that are closing and opening at the same time.
Yeah. Very nice. Also, I see the next slide already, which is the breakdown of the companies depending on the Qina score. Perhaps you can explain a little bit on that as well.
Yes. So this was kind of part of our future discussion in terms of what do companies need to look at for this year. And moving forward. And what we have developed is a Qina score, which is a score that kind of helps to rank companies in the industry. We look at a variety of categories. For example, we look at the science incorporated.
Could you click to the next slide?
Sorry, can you see it?
No, could you click to the next slide?
Okay. Let me just. Yeah, it seems that it just goes to the slide that it wants, and then I have to go unshare and share it again.
I'm not sure if you could go to presentation mode, and it will become a little bit bigger.
Let me see.
Because the indicators along the circle we cannot read.
Can you see that?
We can see the circle, but I mean, you'll have to explain the other ones.
Okay, so on my screen is big, so I don't sorry about that. But okay, so the big one here. So the Qina score is divided into A, B, C, D, and basically what we can see is if you have an A score, it's a very good score, and then it goes down. And so essentially what you can see, if we look at the entire industry of the companies that we've scored so far, the majority, nearly 50% of them fall into a C category, which means there's a huge opportunity for companies within the industry to improve, looking at not only scientific validation, but looking at, inclusiveness in terms of, maybe the price point, for example, looking at how they incorporate behavior change techniques, for example. So there are many different factors that we need to look at. Sustainability is another one, in looking at how can the industry not only move with how the market is evolving and what consumers are looking for, and how that how they can evolve their own solutions to make them better, essentially. So that's there.
Good. I saw that only a very small percentage was A, right? Or the
very
green
small.
one?
So 2% is A. Yeah. So we, of course,
really? Okay.
Of course, yeah, 2% is low. So of course we set the bar very high.
Yeah.
Because of course we want the industry to be credible. We want it to be trusted, and so we want there to be we want to separate ourselves from just wellness and saying this is just good for you. Trust us, you'll feel better. No, we want to incorporate the ethics of AI. We want to increase sustainable diets. There's so many things that we need to look at when we think of raising the bar in terms of personalized nutrition and who it really benefits in the end. And that's essentially what we want. We want everybody to benefit from, the knowledge and the tools at a price point that people can afford based on their own lifestyles. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, Mariette, there's an important clarification question, I think, in the chat. Was the scoring just for companies that closed or all companies in your current database?
Sorry, that's a great question. So that chart is actually for the current ones. We didn't include the closed ones in that chart.
Yeah, would be interesting to see in which category they would fall. Because everyone is of course wondering, whether the A companies are more profitable or have a longer life than the B or C ones. But future will reveal. Difficult. So let's say, looking at the future also. So Mariette, with what you've just presented and the last 10 years in your mind, can you? I mean, it's always difficult. I know I'm very bad at predicting the future, but could you give, let's say, a few hints towards where you think that personalized nutrition companies are moving or should be moving towards the future to be profitable and successful?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing right now, like I said, we're seeing these two extremes, but I think pharma is starting to move into personalized nutrition. So we
Which
can
two
already
extremes do you mean?
so food as medicine, so that's really like disease oriented, and then the prevention is the other end.
Okay.
And so what we're seeing is Bayer is a good example. So not only did they now close care off and open up age rate, I think it is, but they also just acquired Cara Care, which is a digestive health app, which can be prescribed in Germany by the doctors. Yeah, so it's a digital therapeutic. And so I think this is where we are going to start see more movement. And we talked about this a lot at FIE in Frankfurt, that there seems to be this newer opportunity, this intersection of food and pharma, where those solutions will sit. We don't quite know what that is, but I think this is definitely an area to be watched. Out of the new ones that we are seeing, we are definitely seeing more focus on holistic health. So whether it's holistic health for women or holistic health for men, but we're seeing all the range. So blood test, personalized supplements, wearables, getting your doctor, on a remote consultation. That's where we are seeing a lot of. So that also shows this shift in the evolution of the market, that it's not just, I do one thing and that'll be my everything for my health. We are seeing people going to platforms where right now I want to concentrate on my skin. In the next 6 months, I want to concentrate on my gut health, and every healthcare practitioner, the metabolites, the integration with the wearables, with AI, with recipes, meal plans, that's all coming together. And that's also what we're seeing. The other one that I think is interesting is we are seeing more solutions that are focusing on the habit. So adoption of habits for healthy people. So where we're seeing mostly behavior change for chronic disease like smoking cessation or obesity or diabetes, we are now seeing more and more platforms that help you to adopt those healthy habits. Because a lot of people, if you think about it, they know what to do. They just can't get into a plan, but there's not really anything for them. And also, if you think about the biomarkers that we have are for disease, they're not really for health. And so what we are seeing now is more and more solutions that help habit tracking for healthy individuals so that they can actually incorporate those behaviors as well. And of course, regulation is going to be key this year. Transparency is going to be key this year because of the AI Act. We don't know what's going to happen on the US end. Let's not go there. But I think regulation in terms of AI and more so, the how AI is integrated will become more and more important, especially for this year. And companies should make sure that they comply. They should make sure that they have all the relevant documentation in place because it's going to become stricter.
Yeah. Thanks. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, just in the interest of time, I'll keep it short. And Mariette had so many excellent points. But I think what's going to happen is we're going to go from what I'll call consumer speed dating with personalized nutrition companies to long-term committed relationships.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be successful. More than 50% of users change companies within 6 months or stop using personalized services. What's going to enable this is a key thing that Mariette highlighted, which is the ability to focus on behavior and behavior change. And I do believe that that will be enabled by things like ChatGPT to help to facilitate those relationships. I think we're also going to continue to see a rise of, let's call it freemium types of models, give a little, get a little, so that you are, kind of helping people to onboard and provide them then a more holistic solution against their problems. So those are the two things. And like for me, this isn't 10 years out. This is, I think, in the next 1 to 2 years, we're going to see this sort of switch over. And I expect to see more companies, large or small, coming in the marketplace that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think also, for me, I still think it's really important for companies to look at which other companies they can work with to form, viable business ecosystems. Because no one company is going to do it alone. So I think that's really still really, really important. And then indeed, focusing a little bit less on giving the best personalized advice, and focusing a little bit more on how people actually use that personalized advice for the next months or years. I think that's really relevant for companies to to think about that and not only focus on their cool toy, basically, that they have to give people personalized advice, because that's what often happens. Mariette, can I give you the last word, and also linking you to the next webinars that you wanted to present?
Yes, so thanks, Josh and Nard, for great discussion there. I mean, we could always talk like for hours,
yeah.
But yes, we have to end there. We have 1 minute to go. So there's two things that I wanted to announce. One of them was that we are running a survey, which you can see in your chat if Adriana sends it out right now, is we are looking for your input in terms of creating an AI data nutrition label. So it's a quick survey. A data nutrition label is like a food label, but it's how we're going to label like we want to do with the Qina score, but companies that actually have integrated AI into the solution. So it's a very quick survey on what you would expect to see on a label. That is our first step, and then we will work on this for the rest of the year in terms of how that label will look. Is it in the chat? Nard, can you see it?
Yeah,
great. And then the other one was just what is coming up. So our next, we will be holding these webinars every month now. Can you see that? I hope so. So our next webinar will be on the AI Act. There's some changes happening that are starting to come in February. So this webinar will be hosted together with Lumiera. It's a strategic advisory consultancy also based in Portugal, who are working on responsible AI. And so we will be highlighting what needs to be in place, especially for companies who have integrated high-risk AI solutions or AI tools. That's in February. And in March, GLP has already been mentioned. We will be running this webinar with Eat Well Global. They've done a huge consumer survey as well as a healthcare professional survey, and looking at what was the data that came out there and how that relates to personalized nutrition and technologies and what the opportunities are there. So with that, I thank you so much for your time and your presence and your engagement and your questions. If you have any more questions that you want to ask us, please email them or put them in the chat. We will download them at the end. And now that you are inside the Qina platform, you can also access the recording and some of the slides that we showed today as well. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you on the next webinar. Oh yeah, one more thing. If you want to access more webinars, make sure to upgrade to the Elevate plan, which you can also find in the chat function. See you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.